in my 40s and I've lived abroad for over 17 years now. And I was recently talking to my friends about why, so many of my friends are also like now starting over. They're moving abroad, they're pivoting in their careers, they're just looking to do something different. And we just had like discussions around like, why is this happening? And why do we feel like we're at that age where we need to do this? And it really had me thinking about why did I move abroad first? Why did I choose to live abroad? And then how am I in my space at 40s? And also my friends also had started thinking about like why they started to make their decision to move in their 30s, their late 30s, in their 40s, and what is like the driving force around all of that. And a big part of that conversation, I'm just going to be like straight with you. A big part of that conversation is around the topic of who are you living your life for and who did you live your life for in the past. And for many women, for us, it was around we have been taught and we were living a life, another person's life, based on their expectations, based on who we should be for as a woman, as a mother, as a daughter, as a sister, as as a whatever. And we drank that Kool-Aid. We drank the Kool-Aid around this is what life should be. And we're often taught this. You're often taught like what life should be and what your life plan is. And if you're anything like me, you're a millennial, you were taught, yeah, you get good grades, you go to college, you get a good job, and then you get like, I don't know, married and you have some kids, and then that is the perfect life. And that is the life that any sensible woman worth their worth should be seeking. That was kind of like, yeah, the pill that was sold. That was, and many of us drank that Kool-Aid. And for you, you might like this. For some people, like that could be their dream. But for many of us, it really wasn't because we were never given the space to even consider, is this actually what I want? Either we weren't given the space and or we didn't take the time to give ourselves space to think about it. We just kind of like launched into it, and we were on this campaign of being the perfect woman based on these, 4 or 5 arbitrary rules that or shoulds that we should be, that we should follow. And I think by the time you hit your late 30s and your 40s, by the time you get around to 40, you realize you spent a couple of decades chasing this dream. And you realize that, while there were like great moments, this is not the dream that I had for me. Or I don't even know what my dream is. Like, why am I even doing this? Like there becomes this like breaking point. And I think this is the core point and the key part of understanding how you live your life. And it's also like for me, the key point, like living abroad is such a huge catalyst for that question. And I think that question about how do I want to live my life is the source of contentment and personal happiness. Like it's the starting point. And many things will happen after that, and many things will feed into it, and you'll have many spin offs. But I think the source of being happy and being content with your life and being successful in it and feeling nourished by it is around that question of how do I want to live my life, and then actively moving towards living it like that. And this is part of why like I really like life abroad, because you have to confront that question. It's almost immediately you have to confront that question. What is going on? I think my hair is like tickling me at the back. But you have to confront that question when you try to move abroad and when you live abroad. And many of my friends who are even now Some have moved abroad, some have not, some are contemplating. You come back to that question of like, well, is the way I'm living the way that I want to live? And for many women, especially when they get to their 40s, it's not. Sometimes it never was. Other times you're just like, I've outgrown this way that I was living and I want a new one. So I'm searching. And I think that's also something that you have. Do you not question yourself about this? And how do you question yourself around this, right? And and I think like you have to do a certain type of like excavation of yourself. And I do this one, I try to do every 2 years because I think while so many things can happen in a year, sometimes a year is not enough to like really cement your objective and your purpose and to really gain insight from it, the growth, the failures, the lessons, the successes, and all these things. So I do like 2 years that I think about what I want and I go through like certain sets of questions. First one is like, if money is not an issue, how would I spend my time? What am I taking for granted right now? 2 years ago, what is something that I was praying for or I really wanted to do that I have now, that I am now doing or I now have that I'm taking for granted? And then I flip it and then I future prospect it and say, okay, in 2 years' time, what is something that I want to have that or want to be or want to do that I don't have or I am not or I haven't done now. And I try to get a sense of this. And then I look at, what are some of like limiting beliefs? And this is one that you have to be really honest about, and it's not, and it can be filled with a lot of shame, at least for me, and sometimes it's filled with a lot of shame. Like, what are the limiting beliefs that are holding me back? And sometimes it took a long time for me to really understand what that question was asking, because I was just like, well, I don't know what limiting beliefs are. If I knew what the limiting beliefs are, I wouldn't be doing them. But in certain cases, and I flip it around to, how do I self sabotage? What scares me when I'm going forward to do the thing that I want to do? What kind of like doubts do I have? Why do I procrastinate on it? What makes me stop? What makes me give up? What makes me change and be like, oh, you know what? I'm going to pivot and do something else. Like those kind of like things, if you think about those things, those are hints to the limiting belief that you might have that's holding you back. And for example, I've been when I do challenges, like even like posting daily, which I've been trying. One of that, and I haven't, I think my most successful daily posting run was for 3 weeks. I have not yet done a month. And one of the thing that held me back was just being seen. I would use every excuse about my hair is not done. And like my hair is not, like right now my hair is not even, it's not done and it's not the way that I would want it to be. But I'm trying to break from that limiting belief and break from that self sabotage, because the fear is really about, what if I post and nobody watches? And also I don't know what 30 days of posting daily, for example. It's just 30 videos, for example, and I don't know what the future result is. Like I can't see the end of that. Like what will those 30 days bring? And some of that is a bit of fear that's inside it, that's wrapped up inside of it. And because I don't really know what the end result is going to be, there's little reassurance for me, and I don't feel like secure in that. And so I pause and I hesitate and I make up excuses, or I don't feel tired and I just don't do it. And then the day will pass and there goes my streak, and I've broken my streak, and I here I am yet again, not doing what I said I was going to do. And so, yeah, it's just understanding, figuring out what those fears are and what they look like, and the different ways that you sabotage things for yourself can help for you to identify what the limiting beliefs are that might be holding you back. And so I try to like ask myself that question. And I do it like for sure, every 2 years I do it. I also do it throughout the year as well. But I make sure I do it every 2 years just to look back and see what's going on. And then a similar question I ask myself as well is where in my life am I settling? So where in places do I accept less than I deserve? Do I have a product that I am lowballing? I'm reducing the price of things because I think, oh, I don't deserve this. Yeah. And then I look at, do I surround myself with people who add value to my life? And and how do I get in spaces and places where I can be around people who add value to my life? Like I really try to focus on that. And then, yeah, what do I want my life to look like in 5 years? Like I asked these questions. And I think women in their, to go back to the point is I think women in their 40s, certainly my friends, me and my friends, we're at, we've done enough and we've gained enough life experience to realize and become more comfortable with reflecting. Like when you're in your 20s, you're young, you've just started life. Life is like a great big adventure. And you haven't had enough like life experiences, you haven't had enough hits and mistakes and lessons from life yet for you to be in like a reflective mode. I think when you're in your 40s, you start to really become okay. Let me start reflect. You're in your late 30s, your 40s. You've gained enough life experience. You've accumulated enough lessons and growth and successes and mistakes and stuff that you are able to look back in a way, in a enriching way. And I think that's what happened when we arrive at this milestone or this, phase in our life, is that we're able to really look back and be like, well, is that it? Is that all? Is this it? Is this all that I want to do or all that I can do? And for many people, it's not, because it goes back to so many of the ways that we're taught to live. Many of our eldest daughters, I'm not an eldest daughter, I'm the youngest. And so I think because of that, I am a bit more adventurous. And I think younger daughters, the youngest, tends to feel more assured with risk taking because they have so many other people ahead of them as their safety net, or they're allowed to get more space to do whatever they want to do because they have other people around them ahead of them who will help them to fix their mistakes or to grow or to give advice. And so I think that's like a privilege of the youngest daughter, and just being the youngest in general. And I have a bit of that. um, so in my 20s, life was like total adventure. Oh my God. Well, yeah, I hope I moved a whole new continent in my 20s. So there's that. Mm, but yeah, you get to a place that you, eldest daughters, or just what you learn is what you've been conditioned to believe in life. In your 40s, you've experienced enough and you've seen different ways and you're presented with so many different points of views, uh, that you start to like really question, and you're like, well, I don't know if this is it. I don't know if this is enough and this is what I want. And that's when you really start starting over, and you really realize that you've outgrown a lot of things, because these things were not actually your core values. They're they were cultural values that were kind of like forced upon you, or you were conditioned to believe that these were your core values. And eventually you start thinking about things. And then in a more practical way. In your 40s, you tend to have accumulated enough disposable income where, yes, finances give you a certain level of security to seek different types of freedoms in the way that you live. And usually, many times, if you have kids, your kids are in by your 40s, your kids are old enough to be a lot more independent, and so you feel free to do things. If you don't have kids, like I said, you are probably just, whether you have kids or not, you're in a more financially secure space, whether either you understand your finances better than you did at 20, or you've just amassed a more savings where you're able to seek freedoms of, well, I'm able to take some risks here because I have something that, can help me to move the way that I want to move through life. And then there's this one thing that one of my friend, a good friend, said to me, and it was, mm, yeah. So a friend said to me, like, she just threw out the question of, if she's like, teacher, if you achieved all of your goals, how would you feel? Mm, and if you know, and I was also a bit stumped, like, if I achieved all of my goals right now, how would I feel? And and I had the question of like, well, what would I do if I achieved all of my goals? My first question, my first immediate response was, what I would do was for sure disappear onto a small island and it on some where it's cool 23 degrees every single day, 20 degrees Celsius every single day, with nice wind and rivers and waterfalls and just lush nature around. And I would just disappear and not talk to anyone. And how I would feel if I accomplished all my goals, in my head currently, I think I would feel a level of relief and comfort, contentment, I would say. But then also, I that would push me to think about my next goal, which is kind of like a workaholic thing to say, let's say. And the goal doesn't have to be like, let's have some big, strong mission. I think the next goal would be, like I said, to disappear and find that remote island or place where it's 23 degrees Celsius all day. Like, that would be what I would feel. I would feel to want to start something else. And then, I pushed back and had the question of what can I do to feel that way as I work towards achieving them? Like, how do I feel that relief or that contentment or that how do I create a space where I feel like I'm in my 23 degrees Celsius perfect environment? How do I create that while I'm working to achieve my goals? And I think that's one of the big part of how I view life design and I view how people should try to live their lives is it's not just working towards those goals, but like how do you create pockets and moments of contentment and satisfaction and happiness and peace while you're on your way to achieving your goals? Like, why do you need to wait until you've achieved the goal to feel good about yourself or to feel good about your life? And I try to, like create different pockets of curate those moments in my life while I'm building out and I'm on the journey of achieving my goals. I think that's something that you should do. And I think that's something that many women now are incorporating a lot more into their lives. They're being a lot more intentional. And at 40, you're able to do that because you're able to really look back and see how you've lived your life so far. And the average lifespan of someone now is like 80 years old minimum. And so at 40, you're really in that midlife way. And you're just like, I have. 40 more years. I have the next half of my life to live it the way that I want. And it's such a huge opportunity. And I even had that thought last night. It was like, there's 40 more years to go. I've just spent 40 years and I have 40 more years to go. Statistically, like, how am I going to make this beautiful? How am I going to create this life that I can again look back at and be like, wow, I did that. Just 80 years of creating and curating and living in a way that makes sense for me. And so I try to think about that very often and each time I make a choice. And I think that's something that women in their 40s are really working towards. And that's why so many are starting over because they realize that this corporate life or the rat race or whatever it's doing, sometimes it's great and it can be fun, but it's not always worth it when you really think about the way that you want to live. And you're like, yeah, it's time to pivot. And so many women are pivoting. And if you're in your 40s, you can totally do that. And you can pivot yourself because what's stopping you? There is nothing stopping you. Only you is stopping you, really. In this grand scheme of things, you're the biggest obstacle in your life. You, you are the mountain is you, right? Mm, and it doesn't get better. It doesn't get. I don't want to say. Well, yes, it does get easier when you realize that the mountain is you and you are your biggest obstacle. And the only person and the only thing that you need to overcome is you and your old habits and the way that you're viewing life right now. Like everything will change if you shift a thought here and put it into action. And I this is something that I'm working on and I'm trying to tell myself as well. So many things can change and will change. And like I said, I've been on this video run to do daily videos and I keep sabotaging myself because of I don't know what the end result might be. But then I'm working on currently now just having more faith in the process and trusting the process and the journey and trying to have fun in the journey. Like relaxing a little bit and not taking things so seriously because then I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what is going to happen at the end. Like it could be the greatest thing of my life, or it could be the biggest lesson of my life. Either way, like I said, it's going to be positive and you're going to grow from it. But along the way, instead of waiting for that growth lesson, which whether the lesson is going to be growth from success or growth from failure, instead of just waiting for that end result, like just have fun during the moment, enjoy it. So this is what I'm doing. I've just been enjoying and letting loose a little bit, not caring around about a bit around my background, not caring about what my hair is because honestly most days I don't want to do my hair and it's usually out in like big poofs and I don't really do a lot with it. I also still don't want to show up crazy um on camera. I'm not yet at that place. This is the craziest, like yeah. So I just work towards chipping away at the little fears that I have. And chipping away at it is by, yeah, putting in the fun in the moment, like letting loose and not taking life so seriously. And also trying to add in joyful moments in the process and not waiting for the end result to be then when I'm able to celebrate. Like, I was just thinking about like, why do we do this? Like, why do we wait for the end result to celebrate? Why can't we celebrate along the journey? And that was like something that really, I think it like pissed me off last week when I was thinking about it. And I'm like, why do we even do that? Like, why do you do this? This doesn't make any sense. Like, why are you waiting for the end to celebrate? Like, celebrate right now. Celebrate that you are making the videos. Celebrate the fun of making the videos. Celebrate the process of whatever project that you're doing. Like, do the celebration. Celebrate at the start. Celebrate at the middle. Celebrate at the end. What like. celebrate that you're starting again, all the things. And I think just putting some fun into the moment is something that will really help to boost you about starting over. And I think women in their 40s understand that on a deeper, more intentional level now because they're able to reflect. And yeah, I think that's something that you should do. What do you think? And tell me in the comments, what are some ways that you've been sabotaging or, you know, sabotaging your projects? What kind of like fears is keeping you back? And then also tell me about the different ways that you're celebrating the moments along your journey because I want the fun stuff too. Tell me in the comments. I'm Deidre. I give the truth about life abroad and I help women to move to France specifically and to understand and better live the lives that they want because they deserve it, because you deserve it. See you the next time. Ciao.